Hey, what's up guys, it's Bridget. Welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be something a little bit different, and if you guys like it, maybe we can make it a channel like series in the future. But today we are talking about the Subculture palette by Anastasia Beverly Hills. Now I know you guys are like, Bridget, you were like a year late with this review. What are you doing? I'll tell you what I'm doing. There has been a ton of controversy in the beauty community as of late. I'm sure you guys know there's been so many discrepancies about paid, fake, bad reviews, saying bad things about competitive products for this, like giving negative reviews for no reason. There's also been a lot of kickback as far as like people trying to be so real. So I do want to try and see if some of these palettes and things that people were like hating on the internet, and then you guys leave me comments when I talk about products and you're like, oh, it's really not that bad, I don't know what everybody's talking about. The Subculture palette is one of those things. Some people tell me they absolutely love this palette in my comment section, but all the reviews online say it's bad. So I wanted to figure out for myself, is it actually as bad as people say? So today we're going to analyze that and tell you a suggested price for it. I think it's also a really fun thing I want to do with this, is I want to tell you, is it that bad? Here are the problems I personally have with it. This is my experience trying it out for a few days. And if I had to put a price tag on this palette, is it good at its price point, or should it be at a lower value because of the quality of it if it is deemed to be bad? So without further ado, I think I explained that pretty well. Let's jump into the video. Alright guys, so this is look number one I created with the palette. It is a very simple kind of warm orangey color. Eyeshadow look, you know? You can also see on my lid there's a little bit of a shimmer here. But let's talk about my experience using this palette the first time. I bought this used off Poshmark and sanitized it, but this is the Subculture palette. Now, this is found at TJ Maxx. You can get it at TJ Maxx for $25, or that's still a sale for Sephora for $45. I believe the version you can get at Sephora right now is the fixed version, and all the bad batches where they're absolute trash, people say, got sent to TJ Maxx. So I think there's two different versions of this palette, but I got the original one that everybody reviewed. So this is the palette. The color scheme is not really my taste, but I really just want to collect all the Anastasia palettes, so I have it now. This is the palette itself. Now I want to talk about each color and every experience I had with this first look. We'll also do a second one using some of the darker shades in this palette. First things first, I put this all over my lid. This is the lightest matte color in the palette, and I just wanted to set my lid. I very lightly tapped into this shade right here, and there was fallout everywhere. It was a ton. I also kind of tapped off a little bit of excess and just packed it on the eye area, thinking that it would just kind of be like a light color and just it would be this color. Instead, I got this darker orange color. So this was not good for setting my lid, and I had a ton of orange shadow left on my eye. So I just blended that out. I decided we were going to do an orange look today. I didn't really want to, but tons of fallout. You put it on your lid to set your eyelid primer, and it just sticks. It's like it's so pigmented, like it's ridiculously pigmented. That's a good thing about it, but there's a ton of fallout, and also every time I dipped into it, I feel like I was losing a lot of shadow. So a lot of kickback came up, and I feel like I was dipping heavily into a shade for no reason. So that was the experience with this first shade. I also decided to build it up with this shade of New Wave, which honestly didn't have too much fallout. I really thought it was a nice shadow. It had a little bit of kickback to it. It was a little bit powdery, but overall it wasn't a bad shade, and I didn't have too much of an issue with it. It also blended out very nicely, so this shade right here is actually pretty good. The next shade I dipped into was this shade of Fudge, and I just dipped into this along with this first shade to run along my lower lash line to make it a little bit darker, which I don't even think you can tell because it kind of wore away. It's been on for several hours. I want to do a wear test with it as well. So this shade right here, not too bad, a little bit powdery, not terrible though. But blended with this shade, it was a lot of powder going around my face. Next, I wanted to put something on my lid because up until then, I just had my lower lash line and my crease area buffed out. And I used two different shimmers. Now, there are only 3 shimmer formulations in this palette, and normally, Anastasia has the most amazing shimmers ever. This is not the case with this one. I sanitized it, like I said, when I got it. And then I tried to put this color right here, this kind of green gold, like it's a really cool, unique color. Like I'm absolutely obsessed. Let's try to swatch it. Yeah, it's a really pretty, beautiful color. It's like a lime, but unfortunately, it just applies. Its swatch is pretty good actually. It's a pretty good swatch. It applies terribly. It was so patchy there was no base color to it, so you could still see my eyelid color underneath. There's no like base to the shadow. It's kind of like a topper for an eyelid, for like a shimmer. It was very bad. So since I could still see my eye under here, I decided to go into this color right here, which is like, it's the color Cube. It is just like a white pink duochrome kind of color. But that one doesn't swatch very well. It just did not show up. Neither of these shimmers wanted to show up on my lid at all. Like, I packed them on, wet brush, finger, everything. Nothing was working. They didn't really stick to my lid, and you can still see through them, so they weren't very pigmented either. You just had like a little bit of shine on your lid, which you can still see is like very minuscule, not good quality at all. I decided maybe it's the way I sanitized the shimmer, or maybe it's like the top layer of the shimmer is not good. So I ended up scraping off with a nail file the top layer of all 3 shimmers in this palette and try it again. It did not help, so it's not the top layer of the shadow. These shimmers are absolutely just trash. Now, that is my assessment of my first look. Let's move on to the second look, and we'll see if the darker colors in the palette are any better, and what I think of this palette overall. Alright guys, so this is the second look using the Subculture palette. It is a much darker vibe than I'm ever used to going for. I also have an orange lipstick on, which I don't normally wear because it makes my teeth look yellow, but I feel like it matched this look. So here we are in a very uncomfortable looking face for me. So the Subculture palette. I've used every color in this palette now, and I've tried to build up on every color. I've read the reviews, I've read the complaints. Let me talk about this look real quick before we get my like in details and like final price this palette should be. So I used all of the dark colors except for this color of Mercury. Yeah, Mercury. I didn't use this color in this look. So I started off with this ivy green color, ton of kickback, ton of kickback, and it comes off very muddy on the eyes. This green right here, not too much kickback, it was actually pretty decent. And then this one right here was my favorite out of the darker green kind of vibes. This one was actually really good, but I don't think it's enough difference. Like when you put both of these colors on the eyes, you can't really tell the difference too much. Like, not really. There's a little more kickback with this one than this one, but overall I think I like this shade better. But they're very similar when you put them on the eyes. This ivy color comes off as kind of muddy. I put this red color on my actual eyelid. It is darker on the eye than it is in the pan, and I put a light concealer down, so it could come off a little bit brighter, but again, this just comes off a lot darker than it actually is here. But I guess if you're going for like a crease shade and you're very lightly building it up, it could be that color. Don't know. This brown shade used for the outer corner of my lid is fine. There's a bunch of kickback, but it's not like drastic. I mean, you get kickback with most Anastasia palettes anyways, so I would say this shade and these shades had about Anastasia level of kickback, which, you know, is substantial a little bit. Not as bad as this one. This one had a ton of it, and so did this shade. The previous look had a ton of fallout. These shimmers in here are absolute garbage. I would not pay $1 per shadow for these things right here. They're very bad. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's the shimmers. Not very good. This shade I didn't have any issues with when I used it, and I used this edge shade, which is the yellow, because you guys know I'm obsessed with yellow eyeshadow, all under the lower lash line, and it came off as an orange. It doesn't come off as a gold yellow. It comes off as more of this color than this actual color right here, so it's a little bit different. I think a lot of the issues I have with this palette is the shimmers are trash. They're absolutely horrible. There's a bunch of fallout with a couple of the shades. I don't think the mattes are as bad as everyone says. A lot of people said when you blended a bunch of colors together, you kind of lost it on your eyes. I experienced a tiny baby bit of that in the outer corner. I did pack on a lot of shadows in that area, but I didn't think it was as bad as a lot of people said with it being patchy over and over again. The mattes I don't think are that bad. If you are okay with fallout, there is a bunch of fallout for a couple shades, like I said, but I honestly don't think it's a good palette. I don't think it's Sephora. It should be in Sephora level quality palette. I think this is, I would say, a $25 palette. I am only given this like price range because I'm thinking of like 6-pan palettes you can buy from maybe like Smashbox or something. I'm not sure the exact price, but some of these shadows just don't need to be in here. This is muddy. I feel like we don't need this shadow and this shadow. I would really just prefer just to have one. I don't think we need all these both colors. They're very similar. I'm sorry if it has a glare. I don't think anyone's going to use this gray kind of color. These two colors are the same on the eyes, so I would just keep this one. Or actually, I'll keep this one because it's the actual correct color. We don't need the shimmers. So I think a lot of these colors wouldn't need to be in here if we were actually remaking the Subculture palette. I would give it a $25 price tag, so I think if you're picking up a TJ Maxx, it is a good purchase. I would not pay the $45 Sephora price unless you were in love with the color scheme and you keep that receipt. Because apparently the ones at Sephora are like fixed, but the ones at TJ Maxx are like the original, not as perfect formula. For Anastasia quality, it is a fail. I do believe the reviews were real for this palette. It's just overall disappointing, and I don't think I'll be reaching into it very much unless I kind of need like one of these orange shades, because honestly, the rest of it, I have in other palettes, and I don't think I'd ever reach for this color composition because this dark stuff, it's not my vibe, man. It's just not for me. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I know I said I wasn't going to upload anymore this week because of the hurricane, but apparently today, which is Wednesday, it doesn't seem like it's that bad. Like, it's pretty windy outside, and it's raining on and off. But tomorrow it's supposed to actually be here, so I figured I had today to try to get a video out for the rest of the week. So I will see you guys after the hurricane. I love you guys so much, and I will see you sometime next week probably. It's supposed to rain from today to Tuesday, and that's a long time. Alright, bye guys.